Okay, so hello everybody. Welcome back to LangBytes, your podcast about computational linguistics. Today we have the privilege and the honor of talking to Mukund. He loves linguistics and solving puzzles and finding patterns. He has been working with NLP tools and honing them across his internships and at startups or MNCs, research, thesis, the industry, and now at a PhD very soon. Although following the trends, these experiences have led to more NLP related ideas, but he likes playing where people are getting frustrated about the black box nature of things anyway. So he's very into those things. But he's also into comic nerdery and about UX design and fashion. So a lot of different interests, but very nice to have those things. So first of all, Mukund, thank you for coming. Thank you for accepting. And I think everybody would love to hear from you about your journey.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, great. So as usual, we are gonna have our random question, and the random question for you is, what's the last thing you bought online that you really loved?
Okay, so interesting question. I've not really done a lot of online shopping in the last few months because I've been like prepping for PhD, moving out of my job, etc. But I did buy a little gift for my sister, and that was a Taylor Swift cardigan that she loved. So
Oh,
that was the last thing I loved buying online.
is she a Swifter? I think that's the
Yeah, she's very much a Swiftie. Yeah, yeah.
okay. Great, nice, very nice. Um, so thank you for your answer. Now we are gonna go over a little bit of your journey on computational linguistics. So the first question would be, how did you know about computational linguistics? Where did you hear about it, or how did you learn about it?
So actually, a very cool question. Computational linguistics came to me after linguistics came to me, and linguistics came to me as a high school student through a linguistics Olympiad. That was a national linguistics Olympiad. So somebody very kind, who's now going to be my advisor, hosted it for the country, and I got to participate in it. And then they taught me about linguistics at the camp, and that was really really fascinating. Then the camp was held at this university where I did my master's from. This university is one of the only universities in India. Like very few universities in India offer like a computational linguistics course at an undergraduate level, bridging it to a master's. So they told me that because I had made it so far into the team and like because linguistics Olympiad is pretty cool to them, they would let me in with an interview with like a special sort of a stream admission. So that's how I got into computational linguistics academically and personally. Yep.
Very nice. I like it. And I think your journey saying that you learned about computational linguistics during high school, I think it is very different from what I've been hearing from people. For example, in my personal experience, I didn't hear about linguistics in high school. I've heard about like literature, um, traditional grammar, also like learning languages, but not linguistic analysis. And I wished, and I wish somebody has had told me that because I would have been even more invested in doing linguistics, which I did. But then I discovered doing my major.
When
And
did you, I mean, yeah, how did you get into it for a major itself? Like, did somebody tell you? Did you just find it online?
sorry, can you repeat that?
In your case, how did you get into computational linguistics then? Like in college, did somebody tell you? Was there a good professor? Some other interesting story?
I think it was kind of a natural transition. By the second half of my major, I decided to go deeper into corpus linguistics,
Okay.
and um, and then I had an advisor who was also a computational linguistics, um, and she slowly made me transition into computational linguistics. Also because her lab is one of the labs in my university at my university that has this quantitative analysis background. So then she would stimulate me to do like programming courses, statistic courses, go a little bit deeper into corpus linguistics as well, and then um, I did my master's on computational linguistics too.
That is fun. Having an advisor guide you into it very naturally is also a very nice way to go through it. Very
Yeah,
organic.
and I like this part of. I think language is a lot about emotions, uh, psychological state, but there is also a lot of pattern recognition, a lot of repetition, a lot of you know, and then I like seeing, finding out about those things with a more quantitative uh, perspective.
Of course, same.
Yeah, great. Thank you for the question. Um, and I want to know a little bit about your professional life now. Do you had an internship? You did an internship at Navana AI,
Mhm.
and you focused there on capturing dialectal variation, which I'm very interested in, and phonological richness across Indian languages, which is amazing. So, how do computational linguistic methods facilitate these tasks? And what are the implications for linguistic research? So, basically, we want to know a little bit more about your experience there.
Sure. So, so Navana was my second internship. The first
Mhm,
one was more NLP oriented. Navana was the more computational linguistics oriented industry experience. And it was sort of a startup which had gone through like the first few phases of development, and now it was sized around 50 people ish, like around the time I was interning. So they already had a computational linguist position, and they were now sort of like turning it into a senior computational linguist position with like some juniors under them. So I was one of the first interns with a computational linguistic background to join the team. They generally worked on what I was hearing. I think one of your earlier podcast guests did as well. They were generally working on transcribing a lot of speech data from various dialects in India into text, and then making it processable for further use cases in NLP down the line, for like more private use cases, public use cases, even huge data set which was about like just dialects. But as long as it is funded by some organization, it would work. They were working with banking and finance data, specifically banking, finance, and agriculture specifically, and that
mhm,
was slightly difficult to deal with because the dialects we were focusing on were from the areas which are not as urban in India. So taking urban data from not as urban areas in those dialects which are difficult to deal with already because they have very low resources was a huge challenge. So we needed some very basic computational tools to deal to work with like linguistics of it. Like we had to for one of the dialects in Tamil, which is a South Indian language, we had to um, like scrape up some old 50-year-old phonology paper and then turn it into a basic like bootstrap rule based engine so that it can process some speech symbols and transcribe it into
mhm,
phonemes and morphemes in a rule based fashion, which did not miss a lot of rules. Then slowly these computational tools to process phonological symbols grew to also evaluate annotations. So we had a bunch of annotators who
mhm,
would correct things or who would add to the translations we had in the dialects they would work in. So here they would like tell us, okay, this morpheme does not really work for our dialect because we have a nasalization here. So we have a nasalized morpheme instead. So as and when they added that rule once in the annotation, and they were very sure that this would replace all of the other instances of the same, we would add it to the morphophonological set of the dialect. So we basically bootstrapped with a bunch of basic grammars in these dialects, that is from linguistics, and then we like improved upon it as the annotators told us that okay, this is what works, this is what does not work, or this is what you have done, but this is still wrong, and you should do this instead. Because like this modern Tamil, which is like 5 years ago, is not really matching up with your 50-year-old research paper experience. So that sort of a back and forth with annotators also helped us design the computational linguistics tools required to like process all of that data. So yeah,
I love
that
that.
is,
Very nice
yep.
experience.
That was actually pretty cool because I was just thrown into it and I had to like devise all of these things on the fly. And because they had a startup environment, they had to do it very quickly as well. So how to do it in a 80% manner, but still like produce something at the end of the day. So that was actually pretty cool. In terms of research impact, not much because, as I said, it was a very industry environment. So if research wants to, let's say, work on a new region that is not Indian languages, they could probably use our methodology to get started with collecting data, but then they would have to completely scrape it and like make a more 100% accurate way to process these languages instead of working sort of 80% because they want some industry output. So research impacts not a lot except for like getting newer low resource languages on board quickly. So yeah.
Wow, a very good experience for like an internship. And I imagine that it was very dynamic and also, let's say, complex as well. Because to
It
do
was.
those type of experience, even for like a experienced linguist, they are very difficult. I can imagine for an intern. The only linguist on the team joined. Very
Yeah,
nice.
it was fun. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure you learned a lot. Um, Now I would like to know, um, in your opinion, what skills or abilities or qualities are crucial for computational linguists?
So from my experience, I feel
Mhm.
like some of the sorry, some of the major things which computational linguists do need to have are being open to ideas. So you have this rare field in the middle of CS and linguistics, and you need to sort of borrow ideas into each other. So you need to be open to some algorithmic efficiency that comes through CS and integrate it to linguistics flawlessly. And you need to be open as a CS person as well, where you see a linguistics challenge and you don't really back off from it. You start with the brute force method and you sort of develop on it. So because you are in this sort of a middle ground, the one big skill is to be open to ideas and to be able to merge them to the solution or to the research very quickly. And I think the second skill that is required is to analyze through things pretty quickly, whether it be research papers, data sets, or like feedback, for example, from annotators. So whatever things you get, you need to be able to analyze it very quickly because language is all about communication and it is very, very complex. You need to break it down through layers very quickly and like present results to yourself and to others. So yeah, these are the two big skills, I think.
Very nice. And what would you say are the hard skills computational linguists should learn?
Okay, so more hmm, I would say that, of course, a huge part of it is coding, scripting. Do not shy away from that. In whatever language, hopefully Python, because Python is something which is sort of a universal sort right now, and it has the most support in most of the things. But also have some stats in your armory. A basic stats knowledge is always good to have in computational linguistics. And finally, another big, I think, hard skill would be to have some basic idea of linguistics as well. Like know linguistics through and through theoretically, not as a surface idea that okay, this is what language is like, and I'm just dealing with data instead of numbers. It's just text. That's not true. You need to know what text looks like, what it works like theoretically as well. So yeah, these three things, I guess.
Yeah, I agree. Even because like if you don't know linguistics, you should not call yourself computational linguist,
Of
right?
course.
So the linguistics part is really important, but then we add more complex. I wouldn't say more complex, but more hard science or more technical skills, as you said, coding and statistics. And I would say the same skills, hard skills and the soft ones you mentioned as well. Very nice. Um, my next question would be about how do you think linguists can sell themselves as important for the NLP scenario and industry?
So I feel like this question can be turned around. I feel like the NLP scenario should already feel like linguists are important because NLP at its core is processing of language, and linguists were there before computers were. So I feel like it should be a given, but since it is not a given, and NLP is also I mean, a progeny of machine learning and other domains in CS. I feel like it is pretty easy for like organizations and like program managers to overlook like linguists. So if you really want to sell yourself as a linguist to NLP, now is as good as time as any, because now we are entering into this weird phase of black boxed LLMs where everything is magic to people who don't know how they are working. And as soon as people start perceiving it as magic, people start either using it overly or do not know how to use it at all. So, linguists would basically tell you exactly, for example, where to stop using it or where to use it and how to use it, how to wield this magical black box. As a magician, you can sell yourself as somebody who really understands language inside out. And because the machine learning aspect is anyway sort of fuzzy, it is not something you can control. You can at least control the data that goes in and comes out. So that's something that linguists can still work with in this domain
Mhm.
of LLMs. So that's one current way to sell yourself. But in general, across NLP eras, I feel like if linguists want to really sell themselves, they can just say that we really know language, and you really don't have anybody who understands the data you are working with. So here's me who can actually tell you why the results are the way they are, and so on and so forth. So yeah.
Very nice. Yeah, I think one thing that you said, and I really like to highlight, is that in NLP there is language there, natural language processing. So why not hire someone that is specialized, is trained to analyze language? That's for me.
Exactly.
It's very like it's very obvious that this thing should happen, but we know it doesn't happen anyway.
Yeah.
We have to make it obvious. Okay, it is obvious.
That
Very
is a
nice.
pretty sad part though. Yeah.
Um, and then how do you see the intersection of NLP, cognitive sciences, and computer sciences shaping the future of computational linguistics research now that you're entering a PhD and possibly industry applications?
That is a good question. So I think this connects back to what I was saying earlier. Um, of course, there is a need for more of a need for linguists to be involved in this era of NLP at the least. At the same time, if you see, there was a huge call out for ChatGPT, and before that, there was a huge call out for Google, where they were like unintentionally, quote unquote, spreading a lot of bad content, toxic content. And to battle it out, they actually needed humans to verify their data and then like score it. And then they had to build benchmarks on it, which was also annotated by humans, and so on and so forth. In that, there was this article that came out in the middle of all of this where some newspaper was like, okay, these people are tired by all of these things. They are only
Mhm.
financially motivated, and the ratings they are giving might also be very biased because it's financially motivated and they are paid for the number of verifications they do per hour. So how do you battle that out, for example? There's another problem which is sort of unnoticed and it is going on like that, and the work is there but it's still not there in the industry, where the quality of data that you collect and the motivation with which people were submitting that data are highly correlated. And to know what's going on the human side of things in language that you're collecting data from, you would need cog size. So cognitive science tells you human behavior, and human behavior is of course very closely related to language. So cognitive science has a subset of linguistics in it. The way my journey has shaped so far is in my master's thesis, I was able to bring together linguistics and cog sci for my project because I was working on aphasia, which is a linguistic disorder or disability.
Oh,
So, yeah.
very nice.
So that sort of progressed into my ideas right now as well. I'm still working on some emotion stuff. And for PhD as well, I'm hoping that there would be some human aspect involved as well. So I see the factor of humans being constantly present around NLP. Like I cannot subtract humans from NLP. If I do that, I come up with very surface level analysis of data. The moment I get into the data, okay, this is why this data was bad, or this is why this training went bad because the set of data was bad because this annotator did not submit it right, or this annotator did not receive the information right, or for example, I did not do a pilot. So any behavioral research, any data collection requires a pilot for it to be done. That's also a part of cognitive science or behavioral sciences, like the way things are done, the research methods basically. So these things sort of are always there for me, are very intrinsically there for me. I cannot just work beyond it. So cognitive science in some aspects has always been very involved. In the more practical ways, in the more obvious ways, you would see people interacting with LLMs, right? So when people interact with LLMs, they get used to LLMs. So there have been questions about, should we let children learn homework from LLMs? Is it good? Because of course it's a generative model, it generates probabilities, so it might not give you the right answer always. And because you expect it to give the right answer always, you would learn from it. Should you really learn from it? What is learning from LLM like, and is it different from how you learn in an educational setting in a school? This is a very cognitive science question which involves NLP in it as well. So you would see a lot of human interaction with LLMs. There is a lot of scope there for cognitive science to explore and help people be more sure of what they are doing with LLMs, because then it would be coming from research and not some random naysayer. So I think cognitive science is involved in a lot of ways in current NLP research with linguistics, and will of course be able to like steer how we do research in the future as well. So yeah.
Nice. I loved your answer to that question, and I really like the part in which you said in cognitive in NLP in general, there is always a human involved because either the user is talking or interacting via text, or someone is going to read that. And whenever you have humans interacting with something, you need to learn about human behavior. I love that
Of
one
course.
because
Exactly.
if
Sorry,
we
you were
think
saying.
about psychology, linguistics, anthropology, sociology, even depending on the user case, like archaeology as well. So
True.
amazing. I really love the other points.
In fact, that makes me ask you about your master's thesis as well. I think it was also an intersection of some human factors with linguistics. How did you get into that idea, and like, why did you think that was a good idea to work on?
Well, my I used to say that my master's research was a mix of sociolinguistics, computational linguistics, and a little bit of forensic. And then I just summarize everything in computational sociolinguistics. Basically, I had corpus of spontaneous speech in Brazilian Portuguese, and then I extracted 12 linguistic elements. For example, in Portuguese, you have to do the concordance between all the things within the noun phrase. So determinant, the nucleus, and the other things there. So, for example, the boys in Portuguese, the word for the would be also masculine and plural.
Got it.
And there are some dialects and some sociolects in Portuguese in which they say the boys, but boys is on singular, but it means plural.
Hmm.
So this is one of the things that I got there. So I would extract things variables like that, and then I would see how those variables can indicate sex, schooling level, and age. And then and the 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 main, let's say, the main purpose of the research was actually not just actually see how those variables divide between social factors, but actually to test which method would be a better method for that type of problem.
Hmm.
So we tested three different types of method, and then we would see which one was better for this type of problem. And of
That
course, we saw how those linguistic variables divide within the social factors as well.
that's a very very complex problem. Like to be able to deal with it as as a master student, amazing.
Thank you, thank you. And it was very challenging, but it was very. When I saw the final thing, it was very rewarding because I was like, oh, I did this. Hey,
Of course, of course.
yeah.
So do you think you would carry it with you in whatever work you do as an industry person as well? Do you think it applies to your current job or like goes beyond like your knowledge of Portuguese, Brazilian linguistic demographic? Do you
Mhm.
think that help you inherently at least?
I think my masters in general made me more aware, but also made me more. How can I say that? I don't know what to say. How even in Portuguese, made me more attentive to this type of phenomena.
Makes sense.
Um, because I noticed that before my masters because some of those variables are very clear. They're very direct in Brazilian Portuguese. You can clearly see who speak what. Um, but after my master, I got more interested in it, and then I saw, oh, this person talks like that. Probably they have this age, this sex, this schooling level. And what I like about my master research as well is that, and that's the forensic part, because there is a forensic application. Because
Okay.
doing some self propaganda, according to my advisor and the examining committee, my research is the first one in Brazil like that.
That's great.
And
Oh,
even about Brazilian Portuguese.
mhm.
So, so people from my city, the city that I live in right now, because the corpus was extracted from people here, they can use, for example, if they have like a audio sound, audio file or something, they can uh, try to imitate what I did and see if it matches,
Of
or
course.
they can count, for example, this variable that I told you about, and see if it matches with one of the profiles that I did on my master's research. Yeah,
Wow. So the legacy can continue. Wow.
yeah, 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 of course.
Pretty
And
cool.
there is much more to do with it, but um, uh, I leave it to other people doing their masters, their PhDs, because I think I would move to other direction as well. But
Makes
it was
sense.
very nice to do that.
Of course, of course. That was great to hear actually. I did go through a bit of it, but this was much more detailed. Yeah.
Thank you, thank you, thank you for your question. I like talking about my business.
Of
Uh,
course.
Mukund, I think we are gonna wrap up here. But thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you very much for your participation. Um, I I really loved uh, hearing you talk about your journey, about your opinion, about your knowledge about computational linguistics, and I'm sure everybody watching now they will really like it. So thank you very much for that.
Same. Thanks for having me again. This was a great conversation.
Yeah. So everybody, if you want to talk to Mukund, I'm gonna leave some links here so you can interact with him in LinkedIn or whatever other platform we may share. And stay tuned because very soon we are gonna have other episodes on LangBytes. Okay. Thank you. Bye bye.